Welcome everyone to a new episode of my comprehensive NFL player review series, Studs and Duds. If this is your first time catching Studs and Duds, this is actually my longest standing series, going back to when this channel first began as a Madden channel, where I use my ratings changes for my own custom Madden roster to discuss the rising and falling players around the NFL. And to this day, this system hasn't changed for me, as it's a great way to hit on how all of these players are performing on the field, for better or worse. So please, sit down, buckle up, and enjoy, as we've got a lot of players to talk about here today. Good morning, everybody. I hope everyone had an excellent week. It's a great day to wake up and talk about some football. Today, we're going to be breaking down all of the rising and falling players through the AFC North. Before we do dive in, if you could take just a second to find that like button down below, I really do appreciate it. It does actually help quite a bit. It takes just a second. So if you've been enjoying Studs and Duds, if you enjoyed this episode, if you could do that real quick, I really do appreciate it. But let's go ahead and get started with the Cincinnati Bengals, and beginning with their midseason Super Stud Award winner, I'm going with DJ Turner, the young cornerback out of Michigan. Year 3 for DJ Turner, was a second-round pick in 2023. And first and foremost with Turner, in a year that has been very negative for the Bengals, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and it's not just this year. I mean, it has been a really bad run for this team and this front office of missing on those big signature draft picks at the top of the draft, especially on the defensive side of the ball, whether it's Dax Hill, who certainly hasn't turned out to be what they were hoping he would be, Myles Murphy. It's been a rough start this year for Shamar Stewart, Cam Taylor-Britt. I mean, you go down the board, really since they went to the Super Bowl, it feels like they haven't hit on a freaking draft pick, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And for a couple years, you had to kind of be patient with DJ Turner as well. He was much more raw coming out. I mean, a cornerback out of Michigan that runs 4.26, he's going to go in the first round if he's got good tape. And the reality was, coming out of college, he just didn't. So he's really had that kind of ideal progression, development trajectory that you would hope for a player with his physical skills. Obviously, the speed is in there, but you know, you're really seeing it come together this year, man. He's got 12 passes defended this year. He's defending a third of his targets. It's just insane. He's been targeted 38 times. He's only given up 18 receptions. He's disrupted 12 passes. I mean, those are absurd numbers. And he had a run between the Packers game and the Steelers game. You're frankly going to have a hard time stringing together back-to-back performances at such a volatile position such as this. As DJ Turner did there, but he's been really solid all season. And you watch his film, everything's really coming together with his technique. You watched him at Michigan, like I said, like he just allowed too much space for a player with his speed, with his tools, but he's seeing the game so much better. He's anticipating those underneath routes. He's clicking and closing so much better. He's squeezing that space between him and his assignments so well, and it's obviously leading to ball production as well. He's just been outstanding, so he's going to get a +7 in the ratings here, up to an 80. Hopefully he can keep this up, and if he does, when we revisit the Bengals at the end of the season, he's going to rate out as one of the better young corners in the entire NFL. It's really heading in that direction. Hopefully this time around, the Bengals decide to pay their superstar young defensive back like they didn't with Jesse Bates. But we are going to turn our eyes to the offense before we revisit this defense, and that has to start with the quarterback room and Joe Flacco, who obviously was going to be a super stud candidate as well. He's really been the biggest storyline from the Bengals this season, and I decided to go with DJ Turner because I think it's a more meaningful long-term thing to discuss DJ Turner and highlight him. Also fun to just put some of his highlights up there because I think we've all seen Joe Flacco throw the ball and you know what he's doing this year, taking advantage of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But yeah, Joe Flacco, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think he's playing the best regular season football we've ever seen from Joe Flacco here at his age 40, going on 41 season. He's still got the arm talent. He's reading defenses extremely well. And, you might point out that I think he ended up winning Comeback Player of the Year in Cleveland in 2023 when he comes in and leads them on a playoff run. It's not that he was bad. He was pretty solid for Cleveland, but it was always what felt like more of an unsustainable brand of football back in 2023. Just a lot of chucking the ball up, play action deep shots. Amari Cooper made some really crazy catches that year too. It always felt like things were going to come to a screeching halt at some point, kind of a volatile brand of quarterback in 2023. And that's exactly what happened in the playoffs that year. This time around, the tape's just different. He's been more surgical, kind of what you would more expect from a veteran savvy passer. But like I said, the arm is still good. So he's hitting these deep shots. He's hitting these deep outs, especially in these dig routes, really well. He's hitting guys in stride, definitely making the most of not just Jamar Chase, but T. Higgins as well. So it's just been really impressive to see. I didn't think too much of it when the Bengals traded for him. It's not like he played that well in Cleveland earlier in the year, but it's just been such a match made in heaven. And honestly, the Bengals offense, this is not a shot at Joe Burrow. You guys know I've always been as high as anyone could possibly be on Joe Burrow, basically. But it's pretty crazy that the Bengals offense hasn't really missed a beat since Joe Flacco stepped in. So it is hard for the ratings here to know just how high to boost Joe Flacco. I'm going to give him a +5 up to a 74. Clearly, he's playing better than that. The ratings are obviously not as simple as that. This is more of building your resume and a collection of your whole body of work and all that stuff. So he's coming up from some pretty bad play, I think, the last couple of years. I'm not quite ready to just go rank Joe Flacco as a top 15 quarterback or so, but we'll see as the season progresses where he ends up. He's playing extremely good football and absolutely deserves his love here. Now, the big reason they had to trade for Joe Flacco to begin with is our next player going down, Jake Browning, -2 down to a 65 rating. I mean, he just really struggled. He was not the same version of Jake Browning that we got to see a few years ago when Joe Burrow went down, where the Bengals were actually, relatively competitive under Browning. Bad balls, frankly. The arm talent was not enough for him with, decision making that wasn't good enough. There's really no two ways to slice it. Not to pile on the guy, but he's going from what felt like one of the more capable backups in the league to more of just a standard backup to even below average. There's still some good tape if you wind back the clock a couple years, but not so much this year. But then we'll turn our eyes to this backfield. So Chase Brown continues to earn his ratings points here. He gets +2 up to an 82, kind of creeping up towards that top 12 to 15 running back range. Is about where Chase Brown sits for me, and I'm excited. I think the next positional tier maker video I do will probably be running backs, so we'll see just where he lands here, hopefully within a few weeks once we wrap up this series. But after a slow start to the season for Brown, since Joe Flacco was inserted into the lineup the last 4 games, Chase Brown is averaging 6 yards per attempt. He is, in that time frame, the 4th ranked running back per PFF grades. He's got 14 missed tackles forced on 43 attempts. He's been exceptional, so it's been really good to see him kind of get back that excitement that he started to really gather from last season. He's got a ton of physical traits. We've banged on this Bengals team for not hitting on a lot of draft picks. Well, Chase Brown has been a day 3 draft picks that's really worked out for them. It'll be interesting to see if they can kind of afford him in the cluster of salary cap discussions for this Bengals team. He's on the last year of his rookie deal next year, but a supremely physically talented player coming out of Illinois that just had to kind of work on his vision a little bit coming out. He's still had some costly fumbles at times, which were an issue going back to college. It's not all perfect with Chase Brown, but he's definitely one of the more explosive backs in the league when you can get him out in space. And between the tackles, he's turned into a really nice runner as well. So he gets some love along with Samaje Perine. Don't need to spend too much time on Perine, who also gets a +2 up to a 75. But he's having a good year here, man. He's breaking a lot of tackles. He continues to be that firm third down back when they want to call upon him there. But he had some pretty impressive runs, honestly, week 8 against the Jets, where he had 94 yards on 9 carries. He's still got some juice in there, so he's going to get some love back, probably closer to where he would have been rated more in his prime, as opposed to last couple years rather, where he's been a little bit more of a forgotten man. But then wide receiver, Jamar Chase, I'm going to bump him up one. He's one short of the 99 club. We'll see if he can seal the deal in the second half of the year here. The one thing that has held Jamar Chase back for me from putting him in the TFG 99 club has been some drops and, frankly, a lower contested catch win rate than you would expect. I'm basically looking for you to be the perfect player if you're going to reach that 99 rating, and those have been at least legitimate, like, little dings on Jamar Chase, who's otherwise been phenomenal. Well, this year, the drop rate has come down from, it was 7.5% last year, down to 5% this year, which is much more acceptable. But most notably, the contested catch win rate, which has been about a 41% mark on his career, which is actually a lot less than you would think for Jamar Chase, given how talented and physical he is. He's all the way up to 57% this year, 12 for 21 on contested catch targets. That's been that just, demonstrative ball winner at the point of attack that I've wanted to see more consistently from Jamar Chase. We're seeing that even better this year. So he's creeping ever so close to that 99 rating. But then Mitchell Tinsley, the young wide receiver, who they pick up from Washington. Man, Washington, who we've been banging on, and a lot of people have been banging on for how old the roster is, how they need young pieces. They should have given Mitchell Tinsley more of a chance, man. I thought he was a draftable prospect. My pro comp on him was Kendrick Bourne, and they never really looked towards him, and they released him, or he was available on the practice squad, one of the two. The Bengals saw it. They pick him up in a pretty crowded wide receiver room, and he has made the absolute most of his opportunities. He makes this team after an incredible preseason, frankly. And then in a few targets this year, he's really shown that he can have he can make some tough catches in some tough spots, man. He has had some good over-the-shoulder catches, some good catches through contact. And, he's a nice piece to be dropped into the mix here. I can't boost him too much. It's just a +1 up to a 70. He only has 3 catches on the year. 2 of those were contested catch wins, though. So I think there's something there in Mitchell Tinsley. I would love to see him maybe even get maybe the volume that Andre Iosivas gets. Iosivas has really continued to struggle with drops and not be a reliable guy. I feel like Tinsley has a savvy, inside out, almost like a Jacoby Myers-esque weapon for this team. I feel like I just would rather lean into him than someone like Iosivas that I can't fully trust at this point in time. Even if Iosivas can make some explosive plays for you, you've got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to do that for you. But anyway, some players on the offensive line are going to come down here. The young Jalen Rivers, he was rated at a 64 coming in, but he's been even worse than that. It's just been brutal watching him try to pass protect here at the NFL level. He was a very raw prospect to begin with. I didn't want to see him starting in the way that he's been starting this season. Frankly, he just needs development. But yeah, he's been really bad. There's just no other way to say it, frankly. And then Ted Karras as well. This is more just like veteran regression, but his pressure rates are up. He's been a pretty good player, frankly, for them since they brought him in. This year, he's been much more of just an average center. He hasn't been horrible. He hasn't been the defining problem on the offensive line, but he had to come down a little bit. So a -2 for Ted Karras, down to a 74. But let's talk about some more players on this defense. And frankly, it's very emblematic based on how this team season has gone that we praised DJ Turner in the way that we did. And then we're going to have 6 defensive players going down here and nobody else going up. That's really where this historically bad Bengals defense has been. And sadly, it's got to start with their first round edge rusher, Shamar Stewart, who I was already low on. A 71 rating for a top 20 draft pick is not great, frankly, but he's been even worse than you could have hoped for. And it sucks because week 1, it looked like maybe it was going to be the opposite, and he was actually going to be able to come into the league, and that power profile was going to translate right away. He was great against Cleveland. 3 pressures, pushing, compressing the pocket, stopping the run. Since then, he's been a complete and utter liability against the run. He has just 2 defensive stops this year. So he just, like he did in college, hasn't been able to get off blocks and impact plays. He's not setting a hard edge. He's vacating his lane. And as a pass rusher, after 3 pressures week 1, he now has just 8 on the season. So, like, granted, he's missed some time with injury, but he has come back in recent weeks. He's played 109 pass rush snaps, 177 total snaps, but he's got just 8 pressures on the season. So he's under that 10% pressure mark, which is like the baseline for NFL adequacy for edge rushers. But if you look at all his games outside of week 1, he's down to a 6% pressure rate, which is literally as low as it gets for edge rushers. Like if you rank the top 200 edge rushers in the league, he'd be in the 190s there for pressure rate. So just kind of unacceptable play from him. He's just coming down 1. He's got time to turn this around. He was always going to be that raw developmental type of prospect. It's why I didn't love him as early in the draft as some had projected him. Hopefully in time it can turn around, but not a great start for Shamar Stewart. And then as you look at the interior of the D-line, these veterans are really struggling, man. BJ Hill hasn't been the same BJ Hill. He's been worse against the run. He's been slightly worse as a pass rusher. You haven't felt his presence watching this Bengals defense. The veteran signing TJ Slayton is also going to go down 1. He wasn't a superstar to begin with. That's why Green Bay let him go, but you were hoping he was going to be able to eat up some space against the run and anchor a little bit and provide a physical nature to this D-line. That hasn't been the case. He's been getting blown off the ball. He looks like he's probably a cut candidate this offseason. That signing just hasn't worked. So he's going down to a 72. And then you go to the second level. Unfortunately, some more rookies are going to fall here. It's going to be both rookie linebackers that this team has insisted on throwing out there, and it's almost unfair to both these guys, frankly. I mean, especially Barrett Carter, who never should have been playing in his first season, but sadly, with that 66 rating, he's not even playing up to that. He's been probably the worst starting linebacker in the National Football League this year. I can't tank him too much because he's already rated as such, but he's going to come down to a 65. I mean, the missed tackles, not being in the right place against the run, has no idea what he's looking at in coverage. It just blows my mind why they benched Logan Wilson to start this guy. I get if Logan Wilson had some frustrations, maybe not looking as athletic as he once did and having some bad coverage plays earlier in the season, but this isn't the answer, and it's not fair to Demetrius Knight to do that either. Demetrius Knight's, a good young linebacker prospect, and frankly, he's had some splash plays, so I don't want to tank him too much, but he's going, -1 down to a 69. You can hang your hat on the splash plays. He's had some pass disruptions and some exciting hits and stuff like that, so there's still hope that he can get there. But if we're assessing where he's at right now, he's a huge contributor to their horrible run defense here in Cincinnati. I don't love to throw out too many PFF grades in this series, but the ones that I do are typically in 90 plus territory where clearly they're doing something great with an elite grade, or the really, really bad ones. And Demetrius Knight, a run defense rating this year of 29.0 on PFF. You feel it watching the Bengals play. He doesn't have the run diagnostics as that young linebacker, someone that they need him to be their number one. They need him to take on the blocks in the trenches, and he just isn't. He's not anticipating runs to get ahead of blocks, and he also doesn't have the block take-on technique to get off those blocks. So that's where that run defense rating comes from. It's not a surprise to see that there, as much as you want to bang on PFF grades and stuff. He deserved to have a veteran like Logan Wilson next to him to help him bring him along. So I really hate how the Bengals have done it. Unfortunately, it is going to lead to some rating drops for these two young linebackers. But then at cornerback, Cam Taylor-Britt is going to come down. I mean, he's been benched at times. They had to put him back in the lineup because they had to put him back in the lineup, basically. They don't have other guys to play. They've tried to tell themselves that, Josh Newton can play corner. He can't. Cam Taylor-Britt, he's just an incredibly volatile, streaky corner, and it's been that way for a while. But his inconsistency's been really bad this year. He did get benched for good reason based on some of his games earlier in the year, in particular against Cleveland and Denver. He's been a little bit later since he came back off the benching, but he definitely deserves to come down nonetheless, down to a 74. Probably due for a change of scenery. Maybe a different coaching staff can get more out of him because he's had some splash plays and has some physical talent in there as a former second-round pick, but it's not working here. So a lot of red there for this defense, which I think Bengals fans probably were bracing for if they'd clicked on this video. I don't know if Bengals fans clicked on this video or not. You might just not wanted to hear about it. It might just be all the other divisional rivals here to gloat. But anyway, Bengals have a lot of work to do with this defense. That goes without saying. But the specialists at least are having a good year. Both Evan McPherson and Ryan Rakow are going to get a +2. So at least we can end on a bit of a positive note there for the Bengals. But let's go ahead and move forward to the Cleveland Browns. It's not going to be all good for the Browns, but there are at least some fun young players and some interesting veterans stepping up this year to hopefully be some building blocks for the Browns moving forward with multiple first-round picks in this upcoming draft and transitioning, out of the Watson era and all that stuff. And our midseason super stud award winner for the Browns is going to be a core part of that. Carson Schwessinger. The Browns have seemed to hit on the rare rookie linebacker that is able to step in and just look awesome right away. I mean, him and Jahad Campbell, the top 2 linebackers drafted in this class, these guys have come in and made major impacts right away and really gone against the grain of so many of these rookie linebackers that are struggling around the league. But at least these guys were identified correctly by the NFL as the 2 guys that should have been drafted first and hopefully could make an earlier impact than others. And yeah, Schwessinger's just been phenomenal, man. And for me, I loved him. I liked this pick. It was right around the range where I had him ranked. I thought he was an underrated prospect. But I did not think he was going to step into the league and be as big of an impact as a run defender as he's been. I loved his coverage tape. He was one of the better coverage linebackers I've seen. And the way he moved, the way he developed at UCLA, I figured the run defense would come along eventually, but not this quickly. And it's the run diagnostics, which frankly, you couldn't convince me that's a rookie out there. Like, he clearly is getting out in front of blocks. He's triggering quickly against the run. He's found himself in good position. He's been taking on blocks and getting off blocks really well. And the tackling's been very solid as well. Under a 10% missed tackle rate is very good, especially again for a rookie linebacker. And then in coverage, that tape has translated. He moves well in zone coverage. He navigates his way through the flow of routes and has been able to take away a lot of stuff. He had a really impressive interception against Drake May as kind of a spy, where he shows off his athletic ability, not just to elevate with the good vertical to go high point that ball, but to secure that catch as well. I mean, it's just a lot to like with the young linebacker. He looks like he's going to be one of the better linebackers in the NFL someday. I'm not afraid to say that. So huge hit for them in the draft, along with their other second-round pick, Quinshon Judkins. He's just looked the part from the second he took the field, and it was great that we got to see him as early as we did. There were some questions on, when he was going to sign his contract. He had an off-field situation during the offseason. He was starting to fall in fantasy drafts and all that stuff because it's like, man, are we going to get to see Quinshon Judkins much this year? And I'm so glad that we did, because he was one of my favorite players in this draft. I thought he really went under the radar behind some superstar backs in this class, guys like Ginty and Hampton, who I did rank above Judkins, but I thought Judkins was probably closer to that crop than a lot of the other running backs in this draft. And it's felt that way watching him play for the Browns. I mean, his vision out the gate has just been exceptional. The way that he's able to press the hole with confidence, show patience when he needs to, but hit a hole when he needs to, shows off the burst and the power at the point of the attack. And this offense, when it's looked good, it's been when they've leaned into Judkins. This is crazy to say, but there really is a lot of Nick Chubb in his game. I didn't see it. I don't think it's just the Browns jersey. I think when you have a guy that's 220 pounds with the vision that Judkins has and the power that he has, that's the Nick Chubb profile. So you can really see why they liked him. So he's getting a +3. Schwessinger, by the way, I didn't even say is a +5, 70 to a 75 for the podcast listeners out there. But yeah, Judkins, another rookie here, +3, 76 to a 79. Couple of big hits looking like in the second round there. But we are going to have a veteran going down here. It's Jerry Jeudy, -2, 81 to a 79. And Judy's just incredibly frustrating roller coaster career continues. You hoped that maybe he was turning a corner. Finally, in the second half of last year, he played by far the best ball of his career after Cleveland had acquired him, gave him that contract extension. The tape was incredible, but if you want to look at just the raw production on Jerry Jeudy, he was a top 10 wide receiver in the second half alone of last season after more of a rocky start to his season. But God, he's been one of the worst wide receivers in the league this year. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, he has 7 drops on the year, a 24% drop rate. That's just absurd. Like, that would have led the NFL last year in drop rate by 6%. That's where Jerry Jeudy's at. Not just that, 3 for 12 on contested catch targets. I mean, this has been such a frustration with him throughout his career. He's felt like this unique player where he is one of the best athletes, one of the best route runners, one of the best separators of any wide receiver in the league. I'm not afraid to say that. But just might have the worst hands of any real starting receiver in the NFL. It's crazy. So he gets a -2. Hopefully he can do what he did last year and have a better second half than he did the first half. But this had to happen. It's been hard to watch. But then another wide receiver we have to talk about here, the rookie Isaiah Bond. I actually had to create him for the Madden roster for this series. 67 overall rating. To be fair, that's probably what I would have had him at if he was in the game to start with. I think he probably wasn't because of the off-field stuff coming in. But yeah, I don't think he's really been better than you would have expected. If you would have told me Isaiah Bond was going to get significant playing time this season, which I would have been surprised if you told me that. But the Browns have gone with him. I don't think he's been particularly good. He's a great athlete. I don't think you've really felt that impact his game too much. There's been some plays where he's shown a little bit of juice, but it's not like the hands have been good. It's not like the production's been good. He's playing. That's what I'll say about Isaiah Bond. Hopefully you can develop from here. But then another rookie, just like this rookie class is so fun, dude. Harold Fannin, loved this pick as well when they made it. I'm really proud to say that I stood my ground on Harold Fannin. He was a very polarizing player. You either, I feel like, loved Harold Fannin or you really disliked him because of his unique kind of physical build, how he fits as a tight end in the NFL, the slow 40 time, all that. But it was so clear on his tape. Like, he was a high IQ, functional football player. The ball skills, the savviness, that's shown in his rookie year. He's been breaking a ton of tackles as he did in college, where he was incredible after the catch, but he's been winning tough catches at the catch point. He's their leading receiver right now. And I love the way they're using him with David Njoku as a wing player, as a slot wide receiver. That was always the vision when I saw him land here with the Browns. And I don't think Harold Fannin should be viewed as a full-time tight end. He's very much a slower Brock Bowers. That was my pro comp on him, was Brock Bowers with a chain or a ball and chain attached to his ankles because he doesn't have the speed. But I think you're seeing a lot of those similarities. So I'm proud of my draft analysis on Harold Fannin. He was a top 50 player in this draft for me. He ends up going in the third round of the Browns. Probably should have gone a lot higher than that. And he's going to get a +4 here, 71 to a 75 for the third round pick this year. Now, let's talk about this offensive line. It's actually a lot of red for this Browns offensive line. I think it's something to keep in mind when we talk about, certainly how Joe Flacco played earlier in the year. It obviously impacted his game because he was equipped to play well this year. But when we talk about Dylan Gabriel, and eventually I think we will probably see Shedeur Sanders, this offensive line has been horrible. And it has been the steepest fall from grace with the Browns offensive line from 3 years ago, where they were one of the better ones in the league. It has been multiple years now where it feels like they just can't get things right, especially at the tackle position. And you're seeing all these guys fall here. Jack Conklin has not pass protected well this year. His run blocking hasn't been as good. Now he's getting a little bit older. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. That's maybe not as crazy, but he hasn't been a super reliable right tackle. He's been just okay. And then at the left side, it's been a turnstile. It's been a whole bunch of different guys, but veterans that it's weird. Like, you would have expected better play from these guys given their track record. they've come to Cleveland and just been brutal. Now, Cam Robinson struggled last year, certainly, but I mean, he's been even worse this year. He's played just 3 games since they traded for him. He's allowed 10 pressures and has been penalized 5 times in 3 games. I mean, that's as bad as it gets for a tackle. Even if he struggled in Minnesota last year, he wasn't that bad. So he gets a -1. He's been steadily declining since he left Jacksonville, frankly, where he was at least like a playable left tackle, like a low-end starting left tackle. He has not been that. So he's been just creeping down from that over the last year throughout this series. And then Cornelius Lucas. I've always loved Cornelius Lucas. He's bounced around from Chicago to Washington. Never really has been viewed as a starter, but he's always been super efficient as a pass blocker when he's been out there. He comes to Cleveland here, and that just hasn't been the case. He, in 4 games, has allowed 17 pressures. To put that in perspective, he played about 7.5 games worth of snaps, kind of rotating with Brandon Coleman at left tackle for the Commanders last year. So in about twice as many snaps last year, he allowed just 6 pressures. This year, again, 17 pressures in 4 games. It's egregious how bad him and this left tackle spot has been for Cleveland. And then Ethan Pochich, who's been a pretty solid center for them, he has come down in his play as well. So really a lot of red for this offensive line. That to me is the number one objective for this Browns team with a bullet. I would draft, frankly, 4 or 5 offensive linemen in this upcoming draft, because if they can get that right, they do still need some help at wide receiver. Hopefully getting Cedric Tillman back for the second half of the year can brighten that room a little bit. But they're really in a pretty good spot, quarterback aside, other than the offensive line. And the other thing, too, is center and tackle are regressing and getting worse. Your guards have been okay after they've been regressing for the last few years, but those guys, both Teller and Bitonio, are not long-term answers for you. Those guys are old regressing vets, so they've got a lot of work to do on this O-line. But let's talk about this defense that has been a bright spot for the Browns. They've had some games better than others for sure, but they've definitely looked closer to the 2023 Browns defense than the 2024 Browns defense, so that's really good to see. Obviously, Schwechender's been a big part of that, but a lot of guys in this D-line are stepping up, man. Obviously, Myles Garrett, I would raise him if I could, but he's basically maxed out. He's a 99. If you wanted to get the Madden roster, which, by the way, it is up. I've gotten a lot of comments is this roster actually available? It is. The details for that are all in the description below. But if you want to go look at Myles Garrett, there's really nothing left to raise him. He's pretty much the perfect player, but deserves to at least be mentioned. He's just incredible. Enjoy watching him, guys. If a Browns game comes on, don't complain about how bad of a game it is. Just enjoy watching Myles Garrett. He's going to go down as one of the best defensive players to ever do it. And I also think he's firmly the best player in the NFL right now. I'm not afraid to say that. Just look at, he had a 5-sack game against the Patriots on a day that they lost by 30 points. That's where this Browns team is at. But there's some other guys that have done some good stuff for this D-line too. Alex Wright has really broken through this year in his rookie deal. And, he was a 3rd-round pick back in 2022, a very raw but physically gifted player coming out of UAB. So it wasn't a surprise that he struggled earlier in his career. And he had a setback with an injury last year as well. So I would say his trajectory is relatively on course for what they invested in him as a 3rd-round pick. For him to break out here in his age 25 season is probably about right. That's a positive outcome based on what he was as a prospect. He's had some flashes, especially in that 2023 season, as this kind of, oversized interior rusher. They use him on twists and games and stuff and lean into his athleticism. That was all good and fun, but a very role-specific thing that wasn't terribly impressive, to be honest. This year, what he's doing as a run defender, as that heavy-handed edge defender, has been incredibly impressive. He's been one of the best tone setters in the run game. For all of the Browns' struggles this year, their run defense has been about as good as it gets. If you ask DVOA, they are literally the number 1 run defense in the league. But yeah, he's got 17 stops on the season on just 91 run defense snaps. The traits have always been there, but he's figured it out. Like, he's got the length and an anchor and block shedding ability to just command the edge and compress everything inside so that guys like Schlesinger can clean stuff up and Myles Garrett can clean up from the backside. Like, all that's because teams want to run away from Garrett. They've been running towards Alex Wright, and it's not working. He I think, is probably the biggest reason that their defense has taken a step forward this year, honestly. Because everybody, I mean, Schlesinger's awesome too, and he's contributing. Garrett's always been there. It's the leap Wright has made on early downs, forcing teams into later down situations. It just is so underrated. So Alex Wright gets a +5 up to a 74 rating. He's not doing too much as a pass rusher still, so that would be something you would still like to see come along from him if he's going to be viewed as like a legitimate number 2 edge rusher. But at least for early down work, he has a very serious role for this team, or if they do let him walk, I would think a lot of teams will be very interested in what he can do for their defense. And then Isaiah McGuire as well, he also continues to play really well as a part of that edge rotation. So it's either him and Alex Wright out there together on early downs so Myles Garrett can get a breather, or you're rotating Wright and McGuire. But McGuire was, a lot of the things we said about Alex Wright apply to McGuire from last year. He broke out in his second year. He was drafted in 2023, but he broke out as a run defender for them last year. Now they have 2 of these guys, but he continues to play well. I don't think he's been quite as dominant as he was last year, but still has been pretty good. So he deserves some added love. +1 for McGuire, 74 to a 75. But then we slide inside with the D-line. The rookie Mason Graham, just for a top 5 pick, and what we said about him as a prospect, coming in with a 75 rating here, like, he just hasn't lived up to that. I don't think he's been bad necessarily. He's been a practical, like, starting defensive tackle. He's done, a little bit against the run, a little bit as a rusher, but for the most part, he hasn't been what you hoped he would be. Out of this rookie class, he's frankly been probably the biggest, like, disappointment out of it. I will say this, can we stop fucking messing with these Michigan defensive tackles' weight the second they come into the league? Mazi Smith was like a 330-pound nose tackle, and the Cowboys are like, hey, let's have you lose 30 pounds and be a 3 technique. And, why? That's not his game. Mason Graham, one of the more athletic defensive tackle prospects you'll see, the Browns asked him to put on like 25 pounds. Why? Like, his athleticism was the defining part of his game. I don't get it. So, like, weird to say the least, but maybe have him drop that weight back. I don't know, man. Just hasn't been the Mason Graham that we watched in Michigan. I'll say that. So it's not the end of the world. It's -1. Hopefully he can figure it out, but I think it had to happen. Now, next to him, Malik Collins has been sweet. He's slowed down a little bit, but especially like the first month of the year, it was like, holy crap, is Malik Collins like breaking out as a superstar for the Browns? Again, it's slowed down, but his get-off, his disruptive ability is really impressive. He's always had that. It's just in the first month of the year, like his efficiency rates with pressures and impacting the passing game was as good as it's ever been. So he definitely deserves some love. Malik Collins, a +1, 77 to a 78. And then at the second level, Devin Bush has really settled in. And this is no small deal, pun intended, for the 5'11" linebacker here. But, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, similar in that kind of undersized linebacker in this defense. We don't know if and when he's ever going to play again, but Devin Bush, just 27 years old, by the way, here in his 7th NFL season, very young coming into the league. And he flashed early as a rookie, but, he had his falling out in Pittsburgh. He was in Seattle in 2023, but didn't get like full-time run there. But since he's shown up in Cleveland, his age 26, age 27 season, he's just been really good. And we talked about him in this series last year in limited playing time, but this year, like, he's fully taken a starting job. He frankly looks like the top 10 draft selection that he was always supposed to be. I mean, this could be a huge, like, late career breakout for Devin Bush as a legitimate star linebacker. I'm not afraid to say that's possible here with Devin Bush, and it feels like no one's even really talking about it. But he's flying to the ball. He's got 24 defensive stops on the season. That's good for 18th in the NFL, but he's played 397 snaps. The only linebacker under 400 defensive snaps that has more stops than he does is Roquan Smith. So if you were able to filter defensive stops per snap, I can't do that on the site here, but I would guarantee just by eyeballing it, he's in the top 10. So like he has been, and defensive stops are charted as plays that constitute a loss for the defense, or not a loss of yards, but a failure, basically, which is considered, I think, 3 yards or less is a stop. Like, they're impact plays for the linebacker position. So it's been really good for Devin Bush, dude. He's figured it out. So a +3 for him up to a 76. They brought him back on a cheap 1-year extension. I don't think he's going to be that cheap much longer. If he keeps playing like this, I think he's going to get a pretty major extension, maybe here, but could be somewhere else too, because I know the Browns cap situation is interesting to say the least. But let's finish up the Browns with their secondary. These safeties are playing well. They've really been big contributors to that number 1 ranked run defense as well, especially, Grant Delpit and Ronnie Hickman both going up +2 here. It's a 79 for Delpit, a 75 for Hickman. They haven't stood out quite as much for me as coverage players, but they've been extremely consistent tacklers. That's always been something for Delpit that's been getting like incrementally better. Was kind of an issue for him coming out of LSU, not so much anymore, so that's really good to see. And then Hickman's just been a really sound, solid, all-around safety. He's been a nice little pickup for them as well. And, it's series like this that I think show why I do defend Andrew Berry. Yes, the Deshaun Watson trade happened. It's the worst trade in, probably since the Herschel Walker trade. It's going to set your organization back, especially at the quarterback position. I don't think that was all Andrew Berry. Like, I think Stefanski obviously had a say in that, and the owner certainly did. It was a group effort. But even outside of that, I just think that Andrew Berry is excellent at finding talent and building a roster. You look at this list, 3 day 2 draft hits. You've got some mid-round edge rushers, like really developing nicely here. You've got your kind of savvy free agent signings like Malik Collins and Devin Bush that are incredible values for this defense. You've got Ronnie Hickman, who is an undrafted pickup. Isaiah Bond has been playing as an undrafted pickup. Like, it's really across the board. Andrew Berry is doing a great job here. It's just they got to get the quarterback thing figured out. And the offensive line's been a weak spot in the Andrew Berry era, I think, as well. He kind of inherited a good offensive line, and it's gotten much worse since he's been here. But I do just have one last note on the Browns before we move on to the Ravens here. Denzel Ward has not been great this year. I still really like Ward. I didn't have it in me to lower him quite yet. But after a really good year last year, he led the NFL in pass breakups last year. That just hasn't been him this year. And if he can't turn it back around, he's going to have to come down when we revisit the Browns at the end of the season. But let's go to the Ravens. It's been an interesting season for the Ravens. An uncharacteristic amount of red here for this episode of Studs and Duds on Baltimore. But we'll start on a positive note with their super stud that frankly was not an easy choice. The Ravens haven't had a lot of surprising performances this season that would kind of lead you to get this award. I'm going to choose to highlight Kyle Hamilton. Not that it's surprising that he's playing super well. He's going up from an 89 to a 91, so obviously a very respectable ranking as one of the game's best safeties already, but now getting closer and closer to Jesse Bates by my ratings as the best safety in the NFL. And Kyle Hamilton's weird to even call him a safety to begin with. He's played some safety, of course, but I really think Hamilton's at his best in the role that they have put him back to playing in that nickel corner position. Not that he's a bad safety, far from it, but I think when you stick him in that nickel spot, that's when you really feel his presence. That's when he's really able to disrupt the game on all 3 downs, whether it's as a run defender, as a pass rusher, or as a coverage defender in the areas of the field that I do think he's at his best. defending screens, defending the curl flat, defending hook zones, using that length and short area instincts to be, he's always reminded me of Troy Polamalu in so many different ways. And it's just crazy that, this defense sucked for the first 5 weeks, and they go make one adjustment, and it was to go get Alohi Gilman so that they could play him as a deep safety, and that would allow them to stick Kyle Hamilton back into the nickel. And since that switch, they have gone from a bottom 3 defense in the NFL to top 10 defense in the NFL. And Kyle Hamilton to me is such a big reason for that. I think the run defense, especially, Hamilton plays such a big role there. Running plays down from the backside, but also setting a hard edge when they want to run at him. Just so impressive. But all of the different things we described him doing, he deserves even further praise for. He's going to be the guy we go with for the Ravens super stud here. But let's talk some offense here for the Ravens. Another team here in the AFC North where the backup quarterback room is flipping. Cooper Rush is going to come down. I mean, he was pretty solid for Dallas. It just hasn't been a fit here in Baltimore. He ends up getting benched. He looked horrible. I don't need to dive into Cooper Rush. He looked unplayable, and he was unplayable. They benched him for Tyler Huntley. So it's a -2 for Cooper Rush down to a 64. And then Tyler Huntley stepped in and played pretty well. He looked better in the game that Cooper Rush was benched. And then he ends up having to start that game against the Bears, and he played pretty well. And he's shown that when he's the backup here in Baltimore, he is one of the better backups in the league. Hell, he even made a Pro Bowl for it, as silly as that was. But yeah, he can operate this offense. He can win you a game, or at least you can win a game with him when he's the starting quarterback. He can operate the rhythm of this offense. He's just a good backup here in Baltimore. So +2 for Tyler Huntley, getting a little bit of love here. But then Derrick Henry, I am going to lower him. This is very consistent with what I've done with Saquon Barkley, even Josh Jacobs. All 3 of those guys had amazing years last year. They just haven't been at that level this year. But the fact is, Derrick Henry especially has been notably just not that good in a lot of games. He still has shown in some moments. That Lions game comes to mind. He's still in there. If you can get him loose, I've got him as a 93 rating. Obviously the guy can still play, but there's been some moments oh man, is he actually regressing this time around? He's been this kind of ageless wonder. Feels like the laws of running back regression into your 30s just haven't applied to Derrick Henry, but I wonder if this might be the beginning of it. His missed tackle forced rate, for example, 4.7% this year. That is dead last in the NFL after he was at 24% last year. So basically 5 times the missed tackle forced rate last year. And then PFF also has an elusive rating, which is basically what you're able to do independent of your run blocking. And last year, Derrick Henry was 4th in elusive rating in the NFL at 87.8 with how they grade that. This year, 17.3 rating ranks dead last in the NFL, 29th. So he just hasn't been great independent of his blocking this year. So a -3 for Derrick Henry, still a respectable 93 mark, but it could be the beginning of some regression for Derrick Henry. And then Ronnie Stanley as well, kind of the same idea where it's not that he's been horrible. He's an 81 rating. It's a -1 for Ronnie Stanley. It's not full panic territory or anything like that, but he's had some uglier games this season. The Rams game, the Chiefs game especially, the Browns too, but it is Myles Garrett. But yeah, I mean, he's going to turn 32 at the end of the season. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. I just don't think he can move as well as he once did. He's figuring it out. I think Ravens fans can probably agree with just a -1 on Ronnie Stanley, who's still been pretty good, but we had him at a very respectable 82 mark there. He hasn't quite lived up to it. But on the flip side, a lot of these younger offensive linemen continue to just check boxes. I'm going to actually just reveal all 3 of these guys. Roger Rosengarten, Daniel Falele, Andrew Voorhees, all getting a +1. So it's a 76 for Rosengarten, 70 for Falele, and a 69 for Voorhees. All 3 of these guys were kind of young bright spots for the Ravens last year, and I would say they've continued to play at about the same level as they did last year. None of these guys have been perfect. You can point to a game here, a game there, where all these guys have had, I don't want to call them setbacks, but some games that are better than others, if you will. But they all deserve a little bit of love for this young offensive line kind of creeping in the right direction there. But let's talk about this defense, a defense that is playing better as of late, but you can't just ignore the first 2/3 of the season either. And there's definitely been some disappointing outings and some guys that we need to drop in the ratings here this week. And that's going to start with Mike Green. I really thought that he was going to be a baller for the Ravens. And I have been very harsh on Mike Green and the Ravens for all the off-field stuff. I'm not going to get into that here in today's video. Strictly from my football perspective, I really thought he was going to be like a defensive rookie of the year candidate. I thought he was a top 10 talent in this draft, that he was going to be that impact edge rusher that the Ravens had to sell their soul to get in the second round after everybody chose not to draft him. But again, I thought from a football perspective, he was going to be a rock star. And no, he's been horrible. It's a -5 in the ratings for Mike Green. He has not lived up to his draft pedigree. His pressure rate is just over 5%. That's horrible. I said it earlier. I've said it a million times throughout the history of this channel. You want about a 10% pressure rate just for like baseline adequacy. Like 10% pressure rate, you can be on the field as an NFL edge rusher. Mike Green's been at half of that. He's been a horrible run defender. He's an undersized guy that has been just detonated by NFL run blocking. He did have a really nice sack in the Bears game where he did show that really good bend and the get off that he has. He beat the vaunted Theo Beneday at left tackle there on that dip and rip move. At least it's good to see some flashes in there, but wow, he's been really bad. And honestly, dropping him to a 71 might not be low enough. His last 2 games, he does have a total of 4 pressures and a sack and a half. So maybe he's quite literally turning a corner, with one of those being that cornering move against Beneday. But yeah, he had to come down significantly here. And then the other kind of highly touted second round edge rusher that was available for them in the second round, in David Ojabo's case here, it was an injury that had him fall out of the first round. And unfortunately, he's just been a bust. Like, I hate to say it. I think it's probably just injury related. I don't hate the process for the Ravens. I always thought it was worth the risk to take Ojabo where they did. But he's been unplayable, man. You thought Mike Green's pressure rate was bad? David Ojabo has 2 pressures on 61 pass rush snaps. 3%. I mean, you can't play that player. And he's been a bad run defender. So Ojabo gets a -3, 71 to a 68. And the only reason it's a 68 is because he still has theoretical physical traits in there. But it really does feel like it's over for Ojabo, especially with them getting Kyle Van Noy back healthy now heading into the second half of the year, and then going to trade for Draymond Jones as well. I don't know how many snaps David Ojabo is going to be able to see out there. But there is a fun player on the interior of the D-line to talk about here, Basile Okoye, one of the International Pathway Program players. He's been up and down. I had to create him here for the roster. He's a 66 rating. But he's been this kind of like space-eating nose tackle for them. Fun player to kind of monitor here. I don't have too many thoughts beyond that. He's not playing a ton, but definitely has had some flashes as a run defender on 109 defensive snaps this year. But then as we go to the linebackers, I am going to lower Roquan Smith. Now, he is playing better as of late since he came back off the bye week, off the injury. So hopefully he can turn this around. It's just a -1 for Roquan. He's still rated as one of the better linebackers in the game at an 89 there. But he was just so bad at the start of the season that I had to lower him, man. I mean, you especially look at that Lions game. It's crazy to say this, but I really don't think it's a hot take. That's going to go down as one of the worst linebacker performances that anybody has this season. The way that the Lions were able to just pounce on the Ravens' run defense, Roquan was just getting bodied in the run game. And you did feel just like he isn't a full-size linebacker, right? He's 6'1", 230. he can get taken advantage of at times being a smaller linebacker. Now, that's the extent of negative things I have to say about Roquan. Again, it's just a -1. I still think he's a really good player. He's playing better ball as of late. He's going to be just fine. But we had to at least talk about it, basically. But the young kid next to him, Teddy Buchanan, 4th round pick here. He's been up and down, as you would expect for a rookie linebacker, but he's playing well, especially for a 4th round pick. He's shown off the speed. The tackling ability has been really solid for him. He was an interesting player coming out of Cal, for sure. He was in my top 10 linebackers. But like the movement skills were obvious. The athleticism was obvious. Some of the stuff against the run was pretty solid, and that's translated here. He still is like really no idea what he's looking at as a coverage defender. Teams have been able to pick on him over the middle of the field. So like it's far from perfect with Buchanan. Again, he's up to a 68 rating. But at least like getting to play next to Roquan there. Some of the stuff he's doing as a run defender, he's really overtaken Trenton Simpson, who has no idea what he's doing in coverage or run defense. So at least Teddy Buchanan knows what he's doing in one phase. It's been better there with Buchanan. So it's going in the right direction with LB2 for the first time in a while, it feels like. But then we'll talk about the secondary here. I am going to lower Marlon Humphrey. He really was a key contributor for how bad their defense was to start the year. Reception allowed percentage at 71% on the season. But it was closer to 80% in the first 6 weeks of the year. He is 12th in the NFL in yards allowed when targeted for cornerbacks. Similar to Roquan, where like he's playing a little bit better as of late, settling down as this season has gone on. So hopefully can turn it back around. He had a really good year last year. But again, like we kind of had to talk about it. He was really a concern to start the year, and you hope that that's not a sign that that guy could still be in there for like a playoff defense or that kind of thing. But the young corner next to him, Nate Wiggins, has been a baller. And I thought about Nate Wiggins for the Super Stud Award as well. But he's just really looking like a hit of a first-round pick. There's still room to grow, right? He's been penalized 4 times this year. There's been some games where teams have been able to get him. So again, it's a volatile position. He hasn't been a lockdown corner or anything like that, but he's made some really impressive plays on the ball. He's got 5 passes defended this year. He has had games where he's been locked down, and he has been this team's best cornerback quite clearly this season. So it's a +2 for Nate Wiggins. Love this dude coming out. I mean, his traits are through the roof. Like, hopefully this is just the beginning for the young corner. There's parallels to like Christian Gonzalez in terms of length, size, movement ability. Gonzalez is a little bit more filled out, but we've seen what those types of physical traits can do in terms of a guy like ascending to being one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. Gonzalez in his 3rd season has reached that level. There's at least parallels for Nate Wiggins, where if we get to the end of the year and kick things off with his 3rd season next year, and we're talking about Nate Wiggins as one of the 5 best corners in the NFL, I think there's a path for him to get there, especially with this defense playing better as of late. But again, still some imperfections to clean up, certainly. And then the young kicker, Tyler Loop, has been pretty solid as well, so he's going to get a +2, 73 to a 75. All right, our final team here, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another team that was kind of tough to pick a super stud because there's nobody that's like screaming up in the ratings here. But the guy that I think of impressing me the most for the Steelers this year is Jaylen Warren. Now, it's not a massive ratings bump for him. It's a +2, 80 to an 82. Again, it was a tough choice here, but I look at him like he's been the engine of this offense, and frankly, the offense has been the better side of the ball for the Steelers other than this recent week against the Colts. So I wanted to highlight him. It might not be a coincidence that they were both Pittsburgh Steelers, but a lot of his just progression reminds me of James Conner. Not really play style at all. They're very different backs, but a running back that feels like he's physically getting stronger as his career goes on. Like, there was the viral clip of him working out, like dragging the soccer net around the yard. Like, that was really impressive for those that have seen that clip. But it's shown in his game, like his ability to shrug off tackles, to fight for yards after contact. paired with a guy that like he's got really good receiving chops, he's got explosive breakaway ability. He's not like he doesn't have like incredible top speed, but he's got very good explosive ability out in space. His vision has gotten better and better. I think he's done an excellent job at taking this backfield for himself with Najee leaving, showing that he can be a workhorse back, and fending off a running back prospect in Caleb Johnson that, Caleb Johnson has done some of the fending off for himself. We're going to talk about Caleb later. But Jaylen Warren is playing so well that it's justified like not playing Caleb Johnson quite as much. So I've been really impressed by Warren. I'm curious to see if they choose to extend him as well. There's some parallels to James Conner fending off a Trey Benson, to what Chuba Hubbard did in Carolina, like earning that contract extension down there, where you're looking at the guy that you figured was kind of on the outs in that organization, but he worked so hard and played so efficiently that you had no choice but to extend him. I'm curious to see where that goes with Jaylen Warren here, but we're going to stick with the offense here. So Aaron Rodgers is going to get a +1 for me, especially this last month as he's kind of gotten settled in this offense and kind of figured out what this unique Arthur Smith offense is all about. I think he's just playing really good football. We don't need to go crazy here on Aaron Rodgers. He's still had some head-scratching mistakes in there. He's not the superhuman he once was, but he's running this offense really efficiently. He's shown like he can still make 2 or 3 throws a game that make you like see flashes, like through the looking glass, like flashes of the old Aaron Rodgers, whether it's the touch throws in the red zone or the Hail Mary that goes 70 yards or the touchdown in the Bengals game to take the lead with 2 minutes left, where he's rolling left and he fires it kind of cross body down the field, or at least rolling left rather. There's some really good throws in there for Rodgers, and that's really all they need from him is to distribute the ball, make 2 or 3 big plays for the offense when they need it on a third down or in crunch time. He's been a really good signing for Pittsburgh, and it's been good enough that there's now reports of like they want him back. Rodgers, maybe he's talked about this was probably going to be his last year, but things are going pretty well. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we get another year of Rodgers here in Pittsburgh. He's been a top 20 quarterback in the NFL, which is all Pittsburgh could have asked out of him. But then I am going to talk about the rookie running back, Caleb Johnson. This has been really frustrating that he's not better on this team. And it's even with Jaylen Warren like taking the primary carries, like that's great. I'm talking about like he hasn't even been able to earn like the Kenneth Gainwell carries, and Gainwell's been okay. Some games better than others, but like 2.7 yards a carry. He had the brutal kind of botched fumble deal on the kickoff. He has been targeted twice in the receiving game and dropped a pass. Like, just so disappointing for, someone that had very serious expectations as a third-round pick to come in and be one of these day 2 running backs that kind of looks like a star out the gate. It has not been there for Caleb Johnson. It's a -3 for him. I still think there's physical talent in there. I don't think this is the end of his career or anything like that. He's down to a 70 rating. But the drop had to happen from a rating where he had legitimate expectations to do something as a rookie. And I think at least for his rookie season, we can probably give up on that happening. If I'm wrong, I would love to be wrong, dude. Like, I think he has really explosive ability in there to be an exciting complement to Jaylen Warren in an offense that does run a lot of outside zone. But even then, it's like it hasn't been there in the carries that he's gotten. So we'll see where it goes from here. The drop had to happen, though. But Roman Wilson, the wide receiver, he gets a +1. It's nothing crazy here. It's been pretty low volume for Roman Wilson, and he certainly hasn't taken the leap that you hoped he maybe could have as the number 2 target, or at least the number 2 wide receiver here. He's seen just 12 targets, and he's got 9 catches for 114 yards. But I think he's looked the part. We've seen tough catches. We've seen some good moments from him. He did take a step back by fumbling against the Colts in a moment that was dangerously close to inviting the Colts back in that game, where it's 4-minute offense for the Steelers. They're just trying to grind out the clock, and he fumbles the ball on a bubble screen. Like, that was concerning. But overall, I think he's shown he can play. I'd love to see more from Roman Wilson moving forward. But another guy that's really disappointed here is Jonnu Smith. And it's weird because you look at Caleb Johnson as a wide zone runner. You look at Jonnu Smith pairing with Arthur Smith in this offense as that wing tight end. It gets lost off of play action, can be a run after catch threat. You would think these guys would thrive in this offense that's been every bit an Arthur Smith scheme. And it just hasn't been the case. Jonnu's just felt kind of slow and mediocre. It's not really one thing that you can point to, I think. Like, it's not a bunch of drops. He still has 6 missed tackles forced on 25 receptions. It's not bad. But I think you watch the Steelers and you would think, wow, they're coming out in 13 personnel. Jonnu should be the guy that's like running deep corner routes or getting lost up the seam and having like explosive plays. But he's at his lowest yards per route run in his career. I think just kind of plodding and inefficient is the way to describe Jonnu Smith. After last year, he had a career year in Miami. He's looked nothing like the Dolphins version of Jonnu Smith. So it's a -3 for Jonnu. Another guy with Caleb Johnson where it's like, I feel like there should be a better version of him yet to be unlocked in the second half of the year, but that feels like wishful thinking based on what his tape has looked like here this year. Now, I am excited to talk about Darnell Washington here. He gets a +2, 73 to a 75. I thought about just making him the super stud because he is one of the most fun players to watch in the NFL. He's such an enigma. They list him at 6'7", 265. Bullshit, dude. He is probably 290, 295 pounds. He looks like an offensive tackle out there in the way that he's built, in the way that he moves. Frankly, he's so stiff. But he is still like theoretically a good athlete, and he's got like adequate speed for the position, below average speed. But he can at least like get open on play action. And what they're doing with him, running slants in short yardage situations, throwing him goal line fades in the red zone, paired with Aaron Rodgers' precision as a passer, it's fun. And they've discovered a bit of a way to convert in those areas. With something that's just pretty much impossible to defend is a fade or a slant to this player thrown from Aaron Rodgers, who gets the ball out so damn fast. But also what he's doing as a blocker. Because he is 295 pounds, they're able to play in 13 personnel as much as they do and run this unique system that they run. So that's a big part of this too. Like, he is an extension of the offensive line. So he's just been really fun to watch in both phases and deserves some love for it. And then some guys going up on the offensive line as well. So Troy Fautanu, he was definitely the hardest guy to consider for super stud as well. Thought about making him the super stud, but he's getting to play. I mean, his rookie season was taken away from him. I love Troy Fautanu as a first-round pick for the Steelers last year, and now we're getting to see that development. He's been really good as a pass blocker, and I think even better in recent weeks. Maybe it took a couple weeks, which were effectively, I mean, they were literally his first starts. We saw a few more losses out there, but the last few weeks has been very steady as a pass blocker. We've seen some highlight blocks as a run blocker too. I'm just a huge fan of Fautanu's game as an athlete, really great technique as a pass blocker, and he's been an asset for them, stepping in at right tackle. And then the young Mason McCormick next to him as well. He's making strides in his own right. He's had some really fun reps as a run blocker. That's not a big surprise, given what we saw from him at South Dakota State, where he's got that dickhead mentality. He's a decent athlete. He's got a lot of play strength. But he's been a bit of a roller coaster in pass protection, but he's had some awesome games out there as well. Week 4 against the Vikings, he didn't allow a single pressure. Last week against the Colts, just 1 pressure on 40 pass block snaps. Like, there's been some really good performances as a pass blocker too. There's been some bad ones in there. Just a week ago against Green Bay, he gave up 5 pressures, for example. So there's still a lot to clean up, right? It's a +2 up to a 70 rating. But we're heading in the right direction with him as well. But let's talk about this defense. We're going to start with Nick Herbig here off the edge. He just continues to check every box you could possibly ask out of an edge 3. I think quite firmly at this point. I feel pretty confident just off the dome here saying Nick Herbig's the best number 3 edge rusher in the NFL. I mean, he has now, in this role, played about a season's worth of snaps in his career. 965 career snaps. In that time, double-digit sacks and 65 pressures. Like, that's crazy production for a guy that isn't a full-time starter. This year alone, though, his efficiency keeps going up. He has 28 pressures on just 215 pass rush snaps. Some of them are dominant, quick wins. And he's been a good run defender for them as well, on top of all that. So it's an insane luxury that they have this guy to come in fresh off the bench. It only feels like a matter of time until he ends up with a substantial contract. I mean, he screams Trey Hendrickson deal. Hendrickson was an edge 3 in New Orleans that got, kind of this tweener contract between quality starter and, well, you were not even a full-time starter for your team. We saw what happened when he signed with Cincinnati. And I don't know if it's even worth bringing this up because Steelers fans will defend TJ Watt to the grave, but I do beg the question of, like, if extending TJ Watt at 31 years old, who's been good this year, he's been a top 15 edge rusher or so, but he's not elite TJ Watt like he was, and you paid for that player. I'm sorry, Steelers fans. Like, TJ Watt is probably a $28 million edge rusher, like a Brian Burns maybe. He's not a Parsons, Garrett, Hutchinson player at this stage. So if paying Watt that contract means you lose a 24-year-old Nick Herbig and you can't afford to give him $22 million a year, and he turns into the next Trey Hendrickson, well, I mean, would the Saints rather have Trey Hendrickson or Cam Jordan right now? I'll leave it there. So it's a +1 for Herbig, if I didn't say it already, up to a 76. Obviously, the efficiency's been higher than that, but, it's just hard to boost him too much in any one of these episodes when the playing time is lower. But the other fourth edge rusher here, the young Jack Sawyer, is playing well, and he's doing exactly what you could have anticipated him doing based on his college tape. He's not this dominant, like, one-on-one pass rush winner, though there's been a couple pass rush wins in there, I'll admit. But, like, the run defense has been sound. He had a nice batted pass. He's been an excellent contain rusher, not losing that escape lane discipline. He's just been a, savvy rookie. He's looked like a veteran. So it's a +2 for Sawyer, 69 to a 71. He's looking like a very good use of a mid-round draft pick there. And he's just in such a perfect spot where you're never going to have to ask him to be a full-time starter, but he always projected as, like, the ideal number 3 edge because he just does a little bit of everything and a lot of dirty work for you, and he's not going to complain about it. But another kind of super stud candidate for the Steelers, frankly, is Cam Hayward, who gets another +2 here. He's just continued to wow at his age after, like, re-emerging last year, frankly. He was a big talking point last year because in his age 35 season, he really felt like he was regressing. And then last year, he just burst back onto the scene with, like, damn near a career year. And even heading into this year, I was like, well, which version are we going to get? The 2023 version or the 2024 version? And we're getting almost an identical year again from Cam Hayward. I mean, he has a strong case with Chris Jones not playing quite like himself. Dexter Lawrence, frankly, hasn't been elite this year. I mean, Hayward has a case for who's playing the best among interior D linemen in the NFL right now. I really think he does, and it's both phases. I mean, the run defense, his ability to get off blocks, his I've always said this about him, but his just raw strength for a 295-pound D tackle, it's unbelievable. But he's got that pocket pushing ability as a power rusher. The other crazy thing that he might not get enough credit for, he's got 4 batted balls this year on top of 10 last year. I don't think a lot of people understand how impactful that is. A batted pass from a value perspective is right on par with a sack because not only are you stopping a pass completion like a sack, you're not getting the negative yards, but oftentimes those batted passes lead to interceptions. And to have 14 of those on top of being a pressure getter, that's just remarkable pass defense from him. So, like, Cam Hayward absolutely deserves his love. In his age 36 going on 37 season, he has been a true ageless wonder. So, really fun to see that. Now, I am going to lower a player on this defense. It's Patrick Queen. I could not believe a couple weeks ago when I tweeted how bad Patrick Queen was playing for the Steelers. I literally could not believe my eyes that I saw Steelers fans saying that he's playing at a Pro Bowl level, that he's been good this year. What tape are you watching? I'm honestly stunned he has not been benched yet. Now, yes, just as it's always been on Patrick Queen, if you want to string together his 10 best plays, which are largely blitzes this year, which is a very replaceable trait for a linebacker, but the occasional time where he gets a free run lane and he sees it well and he goes through the alley and he brings a guy down for a TFL, yeah, he's a crazy athlete at the linebacker position. Sweet. He can make the occasional splash play. It does not outweigh how bad the rest of his tape is. Number one, the run defense. Like I said, benchable tape this season. Getting flushed out in the run game, the inability to scrape over blocks. Their poor run defense to start the season has largely been a lot of Patrick Queen. It just has. Where blockers just send him to the phantom zone against the run. He also, on top of that, is missing 22% of his tackle attempts this year. That leads all starting linebackers in the NFL this year by about 3%. Nobody's over 20. Nobody's over 19, for that matter. All right, so the run defense is horrible. At least he's a good athlete and he's covering well, right? Nope. He has allowed the second most yards in coverage this year behind just Servasia Dennis, who's been really hard to watch. And again, not out here to throw PFF grades around, but Patrick Queen, a 29.8 coverage grade. That's on a 100-point scale, by the way. Servasia Dennis at a 29.1. The next guy down's at a 37. So the metrics show that, but you load up the tape and like teams get down in the red zone and their answer is, well, let's snap the ball, look at Patrick Queen and throw to the closest wide receiver and we'll get a touchdown. Or let's, in the middle of the field, run play action. He's going to take the cheese. We'll drop it right over his head. If you watch the Steelers defense, you feel this vacant hole in the middle of the field. It's not just Patrick Queen. Their safeties have struggled this year, but a lot of it's Patrick Queen. I just can't fathom the idea that Steelers fans, that I consider Steelers fans like really bright, hard football fans. I just can't believe you're falling for like a couple blitzes where he looks athletic and ignoring everything else. Like, he has been one of the worst players in football this year. And I cannot believe they haven't benched him yet. That contract's looking horrible. So he continues to drop after, he had earned some pretty respectable ratings in that 1 year in Baltimore where they were able to hide a lot of his weaknesses as an LB2. He keeps climbing down from that resume that he built. He's down to a 73 now. It's a -2 here. And if he can't turn it around, could be even worse when we revisit this team at the end of the year. I did at least have in my notes the guy next to him, Peyton Wilson, the young linebacker in year 2. He also had some really serious struggles earlier in the year and deserved a lot of similar criticisms to what we just broke down with Patrick Queen. I would lower him, except the last 3 weeks, he's actually settled down. He's missing less tackles. You haven't felt him be as much of an issue, in my opinion. So he's staying put, not going up, not going down. He's had, obviously a tale of two halves type of season of sorts for Peyton Wilson. But let's talk about some of the members of the secondary here. There's one small little positive note before we get to some negative here. Brandon Echols has made some plays. They've kind of had to lean on him. Joey Porter's missed some time. This week, they actually moved Jalen Ramsey to free safety, which is another note I have. I'll talk about that in a second here, I guess. But yeah, he's been fine out there. He's a 28-year-old veteran corner with a lot of speed that I feel like has kind of gotten incrementally better throughout his time with the Jets. And I feel like we're at the point where we can say Echols is like an adequate kind of replacement level starter. And I think him being an okay player with inside-out flexibility is a big reason you're able to make the Jalen Ramsey to safety move. And this is something I talked about when the Steelers got Jalen Ramsey, where I said he's still a very good corner, and I think he was pretty damn solid as a corner. But their safety room has been so bad that they felt this move was the best move for their defense. And sure enough, their defense had by far their best outing this week against the Colts with Jalen Ramsey as the free safety. And he felt pretty comfortable back there. He did some of this at Florida State, but he's been in so many defenses at this point. He's a high IQ player to begin with. This is why I liked the trade for the Steelers, because I argued that, yeah, Jalen Ramsey is 2 years older than Minkah Fitzpatrick. I actually think Jalen Ramsey has a future to play like safety deep into his 30s, whereas Minkah Fitzpatrick has really started to regress even at 28 years old. I think it's because Jalen Ramsey is starting at such a higher athletic baseline than Minkah Fitzpatrick. But there's really no ratings change here on Jalen Ramsey. I think he's had a good year for the Steelers. Doesn't need to go up, but I don't think he needs to go down either. But I'm curious to see if they keep him here, and does he all of a sudden become one of the better safeties in the NFL? I don't think it's crazy to imagine that with Ramsey, who has, frankly, elite zone IQ, still good athleticism, is a phenomenal run defender, and incredible ball skills as well. I'm excited to see what this could look like if they keep it this way. But they also might just move him back to corner, so we'll kind of have to track it. But then as far as other guys in the secondary go, Darius Slay, man, -3 for him, 80 to a 77, was pretty good on the Eagles last year in a pretty cozy environment as a, CB2, 2.5 once Cooper DeJean was back with a great pass rush. Another year older here, into his mid-30s. It hasn't been the year Darius Slay or the Steelers were hoping for. Just to compare some stats from last year to this year, 51.7% reception percentage allowed last year, very strong. 72.2% this year, very poor. This year, he has a pass breakup on 1 out of every 18 targets. That has come down to 1 out of every 12 targets. So the ball production has come down about 33%. This year as well, he has allowed 3 touchdowns on just 308 coverage snaps to 4 touchdowns last year, but on more than double the amount of coverage snaps. Also, his missed tackle percentage has gotten double as worse, was 8.5% last year, down to 18% this year. So sorry to just regurgitate stats. It really does reinforce the film that would tell you Darius Slay has struggled and needs to come down from his play this season, unfortunately. And then Juan Thornhill as well, the safety. It's a -2, 74 to a 72. There's no two ways to slice it. He's been a horrible safety this year. He's been nowhere to be found in coverage. He's given up big plays. He hasn't made plays really. Taken bad angles as a run defender. He takes a seat this week as Jalen Ramsey takes over that free safety spot. But they did go ahead and bring in Kyle Duggar. He got his first start at safety this week as well, next to Jalen Ramsey. We'll see how his Steelers career goes here, but I do need to lower Kyle Duggar. It's a -2, down to a 78. He's been an issue in coverage for the Patriots. That's obviously, most of the tape we're going off of here. And that's why they traded him away. He just hadn't been an asset for them. The missed tackles have really started to pile up for him. The run defense in general was always a premium strength of his game, not so much recently. So he's definitely on the decline. Honestly, a -2 might not be harsh enough for Duggar, who's really had a falling out. Could be a really steep drop depending on how he looks the rest of the year for the Steelers here. But yeah, the safety room is going to be interesting to track. Duggar Having played just one game in this system, they do have Jabril Peppers around, who I think could be earning more playing time here, and then Jalen Ramsey, of course. It's fascinating, given that room has been as bad as it's been for the Steelers this year. But that is going to do it for our AFC North studs and duds. I hope you guys enjoyed. My goal was to get 3 of these episodes done this week, but with last weekend, had a lot of family events, was out of town, and then the week, I'm not going to say it got away from me, but was a little bit behind schedule. So gonna really try to grind these out as fast as possible. We'll see if I can get 4 done in the next week. My goal was to have 3 weeks of studs and duds. We might need to have 1 episode leak into the week after that, but we'll see where it goes. I'm gonna keep working as hard as I can at it. As I do that, if you could just do one thing for me, and if you're still here, if you haven't hit that like button down below yet, please do. I really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments down below as well what you think of the ratings changes this week for the AFC North. Not quite sure what division is going to be up next here. Maybe AFC East could be fun. I know a lot of Patriots fans are antsy to see that Drake May rating with how he's playing this year. But either way, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Have a great weekend. Cheers.